You're on the record.
All right. Good afternoon, Board of. It is Thursday, December 17th, 2020, 11 o'clock. Board of County Commissioners is here to address Resolution 2590. We've got all three commissioners with us. Commissioner Kenyon, Commissioner Lachiondo are online as well. We have our clerk, Phil McGrain, Nancy Wardell, Katie Reed, Steve Rutherford, Maureen Brewer. It is Andrea Clark-Roop, Jennifer Henderson, Justin Fry, and have I missed anyone? I think that's it. Okay. So I'm assuming somebody from our path or somebody is going to kick that. Steve, were you going to kick us off into Steve Rutherford and get us up to speed on this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Sure.
I will kick it off, and then I will ask either Maureen or Jason to go from there.
Okay.
Again, thank you for this opportunity to discuss this resolution with you. We're here to talk about a resolution that authorizes the expenditure of indigent funds for this RPath home, the services this RPath home is providing. By way of background, during the fiscal year 2020 budget process, Commissioner Lachiondo and Commissioner Kenyon, at the time Commissioner Visser was here, unanimously approved $500,000 from the indigent fund to be set aside for the RPath Home Partnership. The funds were to be held in that indigent fund pending the results of a feasibility study by the Donor by Design folks to determine whether or not there was community support for this public-private partnership. You'll hear from Jason, who's here today from Donor by Design, but ultimately the feasibility study, spoiler alert, the feasibility study was positive, and the next step was really for me and for part of our legal team to come up with an agreement with the city so that our support of $500,000 could go to the Idaho Housing and Finance for them to hold in support of this program. IHF&A houses the trust fund that will ultimately hold the proceeds for this program to go forward.
So Steve,
Unfortunately,
Steve, let me pause you
Yes,
real
sir.
quick for a second. So the county's participation amount is what in total? Is it
500,000.
500,000. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So the resolution and agreement were not able to be completed by the end of the fiscal year. So we are here now. And step one of this process requires the commission to approve this resolution. And by operation of Title 31, Chapter 34 of Idaho Code related to indigent funds and specifically non-medical indigent funds, this resolution authorizes the board to spend money in support of this RPath home on supportive services and rental assistance. If the board approves this resolution today, we will follow up with an agreement which has been drafted for RPath home on the next OBM. So happy to answer any questions and to turn it over to Maureen and Jason for their presentations.
Okay. I thought I read in there that it was 1.2 million. Is that the total amount from all entities providing, or is that the county's portion? Am I wrong in how I read that?
Mr. Chairman, the county is not involved to the tune of 1.2. That would be 500,000
Okay.
from us. Maureen might be able to provide more information, but I believe even the city is in for the more than 1.2. So I'm not sure where that number comes from.
Okay.
Chair Malloy,
Yes, Commissioner Kenyon.
Thank you. Steve, I thought we had spent some of the 500,000 for some services that you provided. Didn't we? This pot of money, did that come out of something else?
No, Madam Chair, usually Madam Chair, sorry, Mr. Chairman. You remember correctly that during the COVID crisis, we assisted the city in putting some kind of unpacking some of the homeless shelters. So we provided some funds out of this allotment for that, and mostly it was just for expedience because it was sitting aside, and Kathleen suggested we do that. Same thing as it related to some rental assistance we provided to Jesse Tree through our indigent group. So I'm not sure exactly how much, but now I guess it's kind of academic anyway, because when that fiscal year expired last year and we started a new fiscal year, that money isn't really set aside. It's now we have to identify new money in that indigent fund, which is why, kind of Phil's on the call, and we can talk about that going forward when we get to the agreement portion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, who's that, Jess or Justin?
This is Phil.
Oh, I'm sorry. It didn't sound like you. Go ahead, Phil.
That's right. Just to follow up on that, Commissioner Kenyon, that money that we spent out of there, we submitted for reimbursement through CARES. So it was more just a pass through to do CARES money.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Well, then we'll let it's either Jennifer or Justin take us to the next step.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and County Commissioners. This is Maureen Brewer, and I was just going to briefly run you through a couple of slides here with my colleague Jason Fry to just do a little bit of a level set around what is our Path Home, what is the public-private partnership that we're talking about, what is the campaign, and then where are we at within our efforts and with the philanthropic fundraising that we're doing alongside this effort.
All right.
So you'll see here, hopefully you all see my screen, is that right?
I've got there we go. Partner agencies. Yeah.
Yep, that's the one we're looking at. So like I said, just to do a quick level set, I am the administrator of Our Path Home, and that is the public-private partnership that essentially creates a county-wide system to address homelessness. So the partner agencies you see listed here are some of our primary partners working in various roles and functions, from homeless prevention to emergency shelter to those service providers that actually house families experiencing homelessness and get them back into permanent housing. This partnership, this system, is a federal mandate. The city of Boise coordinates and manages this partnership on behalf of the county. And then all the partners, just one other sort of piece to be aware of is that all of the partners have agreed to use one prioritized queue to serve those households that are experiencing homelessness. So either sleeping on the street or accessing emergency shelter. And the way we prioritize that queue is through the length of time that a household has been experiencing homelessness, and then also how severe their service need is. So we prioritize the most vulnerable first. So that's just a real kind of quick and dirty, if you will, on what the partnership is and what our mandate and vision is. Okay. And then the campaign itself, I think the name is fairly self-explanatory, the Campaign to Family Homelessness. It's one of the partnership strategic initiatives, and we really just recognized that we had a significant opportunity to make meaningful, impactful change, and to not suffer the fate of some of our counterparts in other communities that are really, really behind the 8 ball in terms of homelessness, and seeing it quite literally spill out into their streets through encampments, through families sleeping in their cars, overflow of their emergency shelters. So our simple plan, to kind of put it in simple terms, is we have, as of the end of November, 329 families with children on our queue. So again, those are families that are either sleeping on the street or sleeping in emergency shelter. So the plan is to to clear that backlog, raise the level of our capacity to do that, and then at the same time, kind of turn off that faucet to prevent additional families from experiencing literal homelessness and keep them housed. In so doing and raising our capacity to do this, we'll be able to serve families faster, serve them more effectively, and save money in doing so. And I'll speak to that just really briefly. I hope you can see this okay, but this is just to point out where in our budget, one, what some of our assumptions are, and then two, where in the budget this $500,000 from the county would fall, and that is to go towards rental assistance and case management. Preventing families from ever experiencing homelessness is far cheaper, as you can see here, than needing to rehouse them after they are already experiencing homelessness. Take some time to get them back into housing, take some time to get them stable again, take some time to help increase their income, kind of get those stability supports in place. So that's just demonstrating the average cost of a homeless prevention intervention versus the average cost of rental assistance if a family falls into homelessness and we're sort of reacting to it instead of being proactive. We also have here the average salary and benefits fully loaded of a case manager, and then about the average number of families that we're serving per year.
Okay.
So this slide's probably even harder to see. I just wanted to point out a couple things here. We've kind of bucketed our campaign costs into rental assistance, as I mentioned, case management and staff, and then investing upstream and some of the campaign admin costs. The $500,000 from the county, again, would go specifically into the top two buckets, which are rental assistance and case management costs.
Okay.
Jason, I'm going to pivot to you for the next couple of slides.
Great. Thanks, Maureen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, commissioners, for having us back here to talk about this. What you see here is for the campaign itself, you see the overall goal is about $8.5 million for the entire campaign. And this is the group of community leaders that we have assembled to be able to lead this campaign. And in fact, I want to welcome, and we're joined by two of our co-chairs today, Tracy Liebig and Andrea Clark-Roop. So thanks for being here. Community volunteer support is critical, especially in a private fundraising endeavor. And as we tested this a year ago with feasibility, we understood that the opportunity to raise $8 to $8.5 million was there in the community. This was certainly an issue that was important to our community members. And I think the idea of not falling behind, as Maureen mentioned, some of our peer cities on the West Coast, being able to get ahead of the problem, and especially being able to prevent a lot of the trauma that occurs that families will face if they experience homelessness. So we have been able to round up an incredible leadership group representative of local business and community. And of course, Commissioner Laciando has been serving as our county representative. You can see that Mayor McLean is representing the city as well. So next one, Maureen, just to give you an update as to where we are right now with the campaign. Maureen, if you can. So here's our general strategy, and this goes along with kind of base fundraising principles, especially with a capital campaign of this magnitude. So you can see at the center of the bullet there, our leadership cabinet will probably make up about 60% of that total campaign goal. And then we'll go out a layer with major gifts. And so that would be in the $100,000 range, major gifts, and then community gifts where we expect to really engage the rest of the community. But you can see in terms of dollars, the majority of the dollars will likely be raised by that core of the leadership cabinet, moving out to the major gifts. That's probably 20 to 30 people, foundations, businesses, or entities. And that's our focus right now. And we're in that major gifts phase right now and really working with our leadership cabinet to secure the case and secure their commitments before we go out to a broader community ask and education, which we anticipate would be probably by this time next year. So you can see also where we are to date. 7 total pledges or gifts that we have, totaling about almost 2.3 million. This does not include the 500,000 that would be forthcoming from the county that we're talking about today. We're almost a third of the way to our total campaign goal just with those 7 gifts or pledges. If we were able to secure your support here today, we'd be up to 33% of our campaign goal. And the reason your support is so important for the campaign itself is we've had dozens of conversations within just our leadership cabinet, not to mention the next circle out, that one of their first questions they ask is, well, isn't this a responsibility of the city or the county to really boost the system on this? And where are they? Where do they stand in this? Because why should I put my money in, my private money in, if the county or the city or the cities might not be willing to support this? So from a fundraising standpoint, it obviously very important, and your funds would be impactful immediately with the initiatives to be able to go into that rental assistance and the case management work, but also just for the confidence of the public in understanding that the county has a commitment here as well, just as the city has, really makes a big difference in us going out and securing individual pledges or gifts. So that's where we are as of today. We're working on continuing to refine our case and our message, and being able to talk about a systems change effort is not an easy one to express. We're not building a new building. We're not building new housing with this campaign. It's really about boosting the capacity of the system to be able to clear the queue of, as Maureen mentioned, those 329 families that we have on the list today. So I'll pause there, and Maureen, unless you want to share anything else, I think we can take some questions from the commissioners.
I think both of my fellow commissioners are probably well acquainted with your program, more than I.
Chair Malloy?
Yes, Commissioner Kenyon.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you to the whole team. You guys have done a remarkable job on this, and the work you do is it's very valuable, very important. So for me, this is an easy one. We already made this commitment. So we've already voted on this. We made the commitment. I think today is more just renewing that commitment and just finding out basically from Phil how we can go about funding this, what that funding would look like if we chunk this up, making sure it's coming out of the right fund. If Phil would talk us through that, I think that's just the piece for me, is just making sure that we're doing it right. I know that we are federally mandated, and I don't think that the county understands that Boise City is doing a lot of work on our behalf. This should be us doing this. So I think that's really important with the new board coming on in January, for you to get that message out really clear to the new commissioners that this is federally mandated, and we do have an obligation to this program. So once Phil sets us straight on what this would look like going forward for this fiscal year, then I would also like to circle back. This is probably for Jason, just to make sure that we've reached out to the other mayors and the other cities. This needs to be an Ada County project, not a Boise City project. And so I want to make sure that these services are serving everyone fairly and equitably throughout the county. So thanks.
Absolutely.
So I think
Mr. Chairman.
I think I was tipping it over to Phil. So yeah, Phil, if you'd like to answer Commissioner Kenyon's question on where the resources will be coming from.
Yeah, I just to start, can you hear me okay? I know I've had a lot of issues lately, so
I can.
make sure you can hear. Okay.
Just audio issues?
I agree. No. Yeah, I just have issues. That's a different chat for a
We
different
don't
day.
have time for that. Yeah, just,
Exactly. As the board may recall, we had a conversation regarding all of this at the end of September, right at the very end of the county's fiscal year. As you know, Steve alluded to this in his introduction of this. There are some issues regarding the funding and how this may work. We did budget, as was indicated in the fiscal year 20, $500,000 to be able to put this forward, but that $500,000 was not rebudgeted. So the issue may be more an authority issue in terms of spending more than anything. It's not to say in a future year it couldn't be rebudgeted and handled. When we discussed this back in September, I pointed out one of our things we were going to be monitoring and watching to see, will there be sufficient savings and what can we do to identify potential sources of funding? As mentioned in last fiscal year, we have a line item dedicated to this, just like we do for New Path. But this year we don't have a line item. We don't have that money budgeted or set aside. So we're having to look to other sources of funding to be able to do that.
Phil, I'm
Art,
gonna
I
pause you for just a second and ask that anyone not talking right now, go ahead and mute. We're getting a little bit of feedback from time to time, but, okay, so and Phil, go ahead, looking for other avenues to fund this.
Yeah, so specifically, we were just saying we were going to be looking for other avenues to fund this. I know the attention the board has expressed it multiple times. I think it was Commissioner Kenyon just kind of pointed to it as well, as trying to look towards the indigent fund to be able to fund this. I think that's what the intention of the resolution here is today. The challenge right now is because of how we budgeted with Medicaid expansion this year, there's not nearly the same amount of funding in the indigent fund as there typically would have been. Because so much has been picked up by the states and the feds with Medicaid expansion. I am apprehensive. I have apprehension about using indigent funds at this point because of where we stand in our fiscal year. Right now, the county is 23% through the fiscal year. So that's just a benchmark for you to say, you know, where should we be in terms of funding and everything else. And as of right now, in terms of operating expenses, indigent has expended 19%. So there is some savings accruing, and there certainly is money that can be put forth, but it's not in the tune of $500,000. We can't identify that. We are spending specifically our indigent medical right on pace with what we budgeted and expected. We're seeing a little bit of savings coming from involuntary mental health and those. We do have quite a bit of savings. We haven't spent very much of our sorry, I'm going to get my terms right, but our non-medical assistance, which is what this resolution refers to, we've only spent 3% of that. However, we only budgeted $70,000, right? So there is some money available there. But again, it's only $70 million we're talking about. So I think there is money there. Depending on timing and when the board wants to do this, the alternative would be to be not looking at the indigent fund, but instead to be looking at the general fund. There's always the contingency that the commissioners have, right? We use that contingency for a wide variety of things. That is budgeted $1 million. And so that might be, and maybe it's a hybrid of the two or something to that effect. But at this point, so far in this fiscal year, we have not been able to identify a source for the up to $500,000.
Okay. The other thing that I had a question about was, this is the first I've heard saying that we're federally mandated to do this. I didn't notice it in the documentation I went through. Was that provided to the commissioners? Anything substantiating that, or does anyone know how exactly we are federally mandated to participate or to support these efforts?
So I think I'll pop in there. I think what Maureen was speaking to is that, and this is going to get real wonky real fast, but the city of Boise manages the Boise City-Ada County Continuum of Care, which is our path home. And that is a federal requirement in order to receive federal funds to address homelessness. Without it, we'd be losing out on millions of dollars as a larger community. At some point in the past, must have been that the county declined to be the lead agency for the continuum, so the city of Boise picked it up.
Okay,
I've said this in the past, the city of Boise is running something on behalf of the whole county. It's probably something we should be doing, but, that's
so
where it is right now.
I just want to, yeah, I'm not to parse everything, but the county is not specifically obligated in this, but by Boise receiving these funds, they are obligated to run this program in order to be receiving the funds they're receiving. So, okay.
Well, the community receives the funds. The city of Boise is just the lead agency.
Okay, okay, so the entire county or Treasure Valley is receiving the funds, but they're running it. Okay, I just wanted clarity, thank you.
This is Stephanie Day. I'd love to, in really quick, to address kind of this question and Commissioner Kenyon's question about the spread and equality of services across the county.
Sure.
And just wanted to point out that we have one entry point into all the services for Ada County. So everybody in Meridian, Eagle Star, Cuna that might experience homelessness has equal access to housing resources. And our housing programs do serve all of those communities. I think right now in Catch's Rapid Rehousing Program, about a third of our families live in Meridian and a couple live in Eagle. So just wanted to clarify that the housing programs do serve the whole county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So where are we going? Are we actually taking up this resolution this morning or?
Yes.
Okay, so then with that, I guess I should open the public testimony in case anyone is here to testify regarding Resolution 2590. So I will open the public testimony if we have anyone. I don't think we have anyone online. I think everybody on WebEx is involved in the program or the county in one way or another. So
Chair Malloy, you
Yes.
do have someone. I think Andrea wanted to provide testimony.
Is that Andrea? Okay.
Chairman Malloy, Commissioners, thank you for considering this resolution. And it sounds like there is some discussion to do and decision making for you to do on where to pull this money. But I'm here today to urge you to release those previously committed funds for this project. My husband, Caleb Roof, and I own a real estate development company based in Eagle, Idaho. And we are personally financially committed to this campaign. And as we look to go and raise private money from the public, we really need to know that our public partners are fully engaged and supportive of our efforts to end family homelessness in the county. And we believe that we can get there. We also participate as a business. The homeless families are placed into our market rate apartments, both in Meridian and in Eagle, and they receive rental assistance to help stay housed. And we recognize that that is a critical piece of the overall puzzle. And we really look forward to continuing to work with our cities and counties in the region to end family homelessness. And I urge you to release these funds prior to the end of the year. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your testimony today. So is there anyone other than Andrea here to testify regarding the resolution?
Chairman and Commissioners, my name is Jennifer Henderson, and I'm here on behalf of the Boise School District. And I would also encourage the Commission to release these funds. I want to talk a little bit about, especially now, our vulnerable populations, like our homeless students. Now more than ever, not having a home is impacting your access to education. If you don't have a home, you have no way to get to your class that are all now virtual, at least for Boise schools. And in West Ada, I know that they have a hybrid model for secondary. So all of those students have no access to their education. In Boise schools, we ran a little report today. We have 345 homeless students today, and those are the ones we know about. Because we have been either in hybrid or virtual, a lot of kids have fallen through the cracks and we don't know where they are. And those 345 students actually represent 46 schools in the Boise School District. We only have 52. So it is across Boise that we are seeing this homeless issue amongst our families. And now more than ever, we need to get them into their homes, into a home, so that their kids can have their access to education and so that they can thrive. It's time and time again, we see, especially in situations of crisis, our most vulnerable populations are the ones who are hit the hardest. And right now, what I can tell you, it's our homeless kids in the Boise schools.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else here to offer testimony on the resolution this morning? I don't think we have anyone waiting outside the room. I don't think we have anyone else online. So with that, we will close public testimony. And I believe at this point, it's incumbent upon the commissioners to take up the matter.
Well, Commissioner Malloy, Chair Malloy.
Yes, Commissioner Kenyon.
Again, this is me just reiterating, we already made this commitment, and it's more of a kind of a technicality, if you will. It did not get budgeted into this year's budget. And that was an oversight on our part. And so we just have to figure out, legally, how can we budget this? Where does it come from? Do we have the funds? It might take some creative, creative funding, a little bit from here, a little bit from there, like Phil said, maybe a hybrid. So I guess, Jason, could you tell us if, so when do you actually need to start using these funds? If in this resolution we recommitted the full amount, and let's say we took 300 out this year and 200 in next year's budget, I don't know where you're at in terms of actually having to start paying people for services and doing the actual work. So can you tell us what that would look like, and if that's a problem with rolling it into 2 years?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Steve Rutherford.
I'm sorry, yeah. Well,
Apologize.
Jason, we'll interrupt you for just a second and let Steve
Apologize.
come in here. No, go ahead.
Apologize, Commissioner Kenyon. Just to that point, a couple things. So this resolution that you're considering today has no financial obligation. It is just authorizing you to spend county funds for this, indigent funds for this purpose. So it's just, again, kind of just to put a fine point on it, this isn't the contract, which would come forward maybe as early as next week. But we have a little bit of time to have this conversation with Phil and Kathleen about kind of where to go from here in terms of the money. And the question you asked, Commissioner Kenyon, I've had that conversation with Maureen, and I think, not to cut Jason off, but I think Maureen has that answer.
Thanks, Steve. And Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, Commissioner Lachando, we could potentially split that over 2 years. I think that would be perfectly appropriate. That said, particularly amidst this pandemic that we find ourselves in, we could certainly start spending those dollars right away. As Steve referenced, if a contract were to come forward as early as next week or in the next few weeks, we could certainly put those dollars to good use. I know you saw that budget slide for only a brief minute, but we have to be able to expand our capacity to meet the need that we're currently seeing. And to do that, of course, we'll need to spend campaign dollars.
Okay, thank you. Jason, did you want to add anything there, or since you were?
No, Maureen's in charge.
Okay.
And she knows we're going to spend this down. I'm just in charge of trying to help her find the money.
No worries. No worries. Okay. All right. So,
Chair?
yes. Is that?
So, for me, I think the big issue here is A, we made the commitment. B, I feel like this is frankly, the bare minimum the county should be doing. Of all the government entities who are involved, we're the only ones who have an indigent fund, who are required to provide both medical and non-medical indigent services. So, if Jesse Tree was to go away tomorrow and all of the private funds that they're currently able to accept we would see our dollars skyrocket in terms of what we would be spending on rental assistance. But right now, there's a lot of private philanthropy happening in the community. And I think donors are rightly asking, well, where's the county's role in all of this? Sort of similarly for me, as one of the key points that Maureen referenced is, we hear a lot about not wanting to become California or Seattle or what have you. Part of the reason that they're in such kind of difficult straits is that they waited too long to create a more systemic effort in this way. And some of those counties are now actually under a federal court order to provide more emergency shelter. So for me, this is a really smart investment to spend money on prevention and housing versus a few years down the road, Ada County coming under some kind of federal court order to provide more emergency shelter.
Okay. Well, just some of the things in reading, it was, I know in our advice letters from legal, section 31, 3401, it talks about the authority to do this shall be on a temporary basis, not a permanent basis. I know that can be read one of two ways: not permanent to those receiving the funds, or not permanent from the county to any particular program. I tend to read it in the latter, not permanent. I know this is now going into the 4th year of this, as the resolution reads back. It started back in 2017. Some of the other things I have, it says only when no other alternatives exist. And I do know that there are, this program itself is a nonprofit funded is a privately funded organization. Some of it coming from federal dollars has been discussed that Boise's running, others from private philanthropy propping this up. And then one of the other issues I have is direct oversight, by the commissioners talking about this as we would with indigent. We have direct oversight in indigent and other issues there that we maintain on a regular basis. However, having said all that, I still will agree with my fellow commissioners that we ought to honor the commitment that was made in this last thing as much as we legally can find those funds and conclude that. But I just, on the record, that I think future boards need to look at this and say, is this something that should permanently be funded with taxpayer dollars, or is this a program that ought to rely entirely on private philanthropy? So I will just say that's something for future boards to consider and take up. But I think it is appropriate to, honor what was put forth already in the county's commitment and share in our part of participation. So with that, unless there are other things by my fellow commissioners that need to be said, I would take up a motion on the resolution.
Chair Malloy,
Yes.
I'm going to look to, I think Nancy, I have the resolution, but it doesn't have a number on it.
2590 is what I had. If Nancy would like to confirm that, or.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2590-2590 to include housing assistance as necessary services eligible for payment as non-medical assistance, and authorize the chair to sign the documents on behalf of the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Well, thank you all for your participation, the good background information. I hope that this helps you launch and go out there and get the private philanthropy that is going to be the majority of what you need to work on this and help us not get and become some of the other communities that we see this being a really very large growing problem. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Yep. And with that, we will go into recess.